Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen, music lovers, and those who believe that every song is a bridge between now and what was, and what is, and what could be. He is a voice weathered by miles of road, memory, and melody. A master of roots, Celtic folk, and storytelling. Well, this is Bruce Kogan. Performer, composer, recording artist, human jukebox, and one of Canada's most enduring songsmiths. For over 50 years, Bruce has carried stories in his voice. Whether in a firelit concert hall or a quiet cafe, his acoustic guitar and expressive vocals deliver songs that take you across rivers, mountains, into pioneer tales, ghosted islands, and shimmering memories of home. Songs like Go the Road, A River So Wide, Ghosts of Reed Island, and A Ripple in Time are more than just tracks, they're journeys. His Stirring Up Ghost initiative isn't just a discovery. Since 1997, it's been his mission to preserve and to share the heritage of Pacific Canada, its people, its land, its forgotten stories. From way out west to apple box bells, Bruce writes with compassion, insight, and a respect for voices that deserve to be heard. He doesn't rely on loops, synthetic applause, or gloss. What he offers is raw, honest, human, guitar strings, worn voice, lyrical imagery that makes you see, remember, and feel. Now, he's been awarded acclaim, built a catalog of albums, 14 and counting, and won hearts across generations. So if you believe a song can make history live again, if you believe a melody can whisper ghosts into a room, then you're going to love Bruce. It's my honor to welcome a storyteller, a legend, and a musical genius, Bruce Kogan. Bruce, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show.
Wow, that's quite an introduction.
You know, Bruce, we were chatting real quick there, and I want to go back to the story real quick before we forget it. You left home at age 14, was that right?
For the first time, yeah. I had been, as I said, I had a great folk music teacher through elementary school. Started me on ukulele, over to the guitar, and for 2 years on the upright bass. I was the Hillcrest Elementary Folk Band back in 1970.
Now, you said that you left home for the first time when you were 14. Did you leave home again?
Yeah. The first time I was going to, we had moved out to Langley, BC, and I was in high school. And for the first 3 months, I was just sort of getting by. And the music teacher said that I needed to read music note for note. And I thought that that was a degree of separation from the understanding that I had of music. I've always had sort of just born with an understanding of it. So reading tadpoles off a page was a degree of separation. And I tried to explain that to him, and he kicked me out of band. So I quit school. And my father was of the opinion in the day, a little tough love, he said, well, house rules are thus. You either have a job, you're either attending school, or there's the door. It works both ways. And at 14, I threw a guitar on my back and I went downtown Vancouver and started busking on street corners, sleeping in parks and beaches and ending up at sing-along parties until 3 o'clock in the morning and sleeping on strangers' couches. That was my 14th summer.
I love this. Okay, so and I know for our listeners out there, we're kind of jumping around in time and space because it's such a fabulous story. At 14, we leave home, guitar on our back, we're sleeping around beaches and parks and couches. I want to take a minute here. So you always had this infinity for music. And I love how you said, your teacher said you have to read it note for note. And on one hand, the school system says, this is how we teach people. This is what you need to do to pass my class. But when you get someone like yourself who just has this connection with music, do you ever look back on that moment and say, hey, teacher, or hey, school system, you really kind of dropped the ball on unique people like me?
Yeah, part of me has thought that over the years, and part of me wondered if he just forced the hand that caused me to take on a lifetime of adventure in music. And that's really, truly what it has been. We joke about music being the toughest way to make an easy living. And there is a lot of reward. I've discovered a lot of interesting corners that are very, very rewarding. Performing for people who are in a severe disposition, whether that's hospice or whether they're suffering from Alzheimer's, and engaging those people musically can be a very rewarding aspect, and just one part of an amazing journey.
While we're here, I want to ask you, there was a story that I heard about you, and I know you've told.
Which said,
It's a good story. It's a great story. You've told this story, I'm sure, thousands of times since 1970 and even till today. I just love this story, and I'm wondering if you can share it with our listeners who might not know it. But it goes along the lines of that I think you were grade 6 or 8, and your teacher said, "Geez, you got no musical talent whatsoever. You should stop playing and go do something else."
that was the first few months in high school, first few months in grade 8, and I just went, nope, this isn't for me. I knew what my calling was, but from the time I was 6 years old, I knew in my heart what I was meant to do. And all my life, from the time, at 14, it's been 50 years. I've been a full-time performing musician. That's been my living, through many a valley and peak, so to speak.
I want to ask this, and I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times already, if not more, that do you think or do you consider that maybe that teacher who said, "Hey, put down the guitar, pick up something else," was trying to give you a little bit more of a harder's life push to say, "Hey, you got it, but you need a little bit more"?
Part of me wants to think that possibly he saw that potential and did give me that little push, sent me off on my own direction. I mean, I recall playing When the Saints Go Marching In, and he had 30 kids doing the same line. Da, 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 da. I'd heard Dixieland, and he'd given me a trombone the week before and said, well, get acquainted with it. And so I started improvising. And he just froze. He says, how dare you do that? Well, that's what I hear in my head. That's what's going on.
I love that you've said this, because it's one of these things where they have nothing against the school system, nothing against anybody. But it's like, okay, we're going to play When the Saints Go Marching In. Here you go, everyone, get your pieces of paper. And then you get someone like yourself who says, well, I don't want to do that. I want to have more fun. And then they turn around and it's like their whole musical directorial career has been tainted by this one kid in class who won't
Yeah.
follow the beat.
Oh, well. But as I said, it's been a whole life of musical adventure.
So I want to stay in this era with you. So you're 14, you grab the guitar, you're out the door, we're busking on the corner. Do you remember the first time that you buskered on that corner? Walk us through that feeling. You're 14 years old, you just walked out of the house.
Well, at the time, Vancouver was a much kinder place. We're talking about 1975. It was still pretty much peace, love, and tie-dye. We had the Krishnas on one corner playing their tambourine. Half a block down, some guy would be wailing away playing the tenor saxophone. And the next block down, some guy in full regalia playing the bagpipes. So I learned to find my place in between the bagpipe player and the saxophonist, half a block in between, where I found an overhang away from the elements. And I learned to project. And I did receive, even in the day, enough to, I get enough in my guitar case for 3 squares at McDonald's on the Granville Mall. But it was also an interesting time for folk music, folk clubs, song circles, drum circles. They were common sort of gathering points for musicians and aspiring musicians like me. And I still remember the old soft rock cafe in Kitsilano. And I knew I didn't have any money. And I was always checking out the posters. And we got into a conversation. And they said, well, tell you what, you sweep the floor and you'll get a free ticket for tonight's show. And it was that sort of, inspiration that I walked in. The first time I'd seen Valdi was at the Soft Rock Cafe in 1975. And here he's just turned 80 and we're pals.
Wow. I want to ask you, have you ever gone back to that corner, that little, block and a half between the saxophone player, and just taken a photo or played a song just for the heck of it for old memories?
Boy, oh boy. I hadn't thought to do that till you mentioned it.
Well, now you're going to have to get out there.
Well, now I'm afraid there's a whole bunch of hoops to jump through. You see, you can't just set up and start playing on a street corner in Vancouver. You have to apply for a permit.
Oh.
And that permit comes with a once-a-year audition where people go down, like hundreds of musicians go down, and they'll pick 2 or 3 dozen.
Jeez.
And they have associated places that you can't walk beyond. You have to be at this bus terminal or this SkyTrain station. And this is where you're allowed to be. Yeah, it's those days of peace, love, tie-dye. And I still remember jamming into the wee hours on the street corner. French Canadian fiddle players, people with congos and djembes playing along. And the Krishnas would walk by and start playing their tambourines and dancing around. I mean, that was an era of bohemian existence.
I think you take the risk. I say you grab the guitar on a Sunday or a Saturday, whatever works for you. You just show up and start playing until someone kicks you out. Just like the old days where someone would come by and be like, hey, you can't be here right now. I say you do it. I say you just take the risk, Bruce. I think it'd be fantastic. Just grab that photo. Maybe that's where the new album cover comes for you. Your album number 18 is right there, taking a risk.
You never do know.
But you've been doing this for 50 plus years.
Yeah.
I want to ask, what do you feel is the most important lesson that time has taught you about music?
Well, perseverance and being able to find different positions to play, to be successful in the music industry, to make a living is a very, very challenging aspect. Keeping up with technology has proven, I started recording on vinyl in the 1980s, in the early 1980s. I still remember flogging them off at dance halls and stuff like that, and making the money back. You'd get 1,000 printed, and within a year, you'd make your money back. You could go into the studio and cut another album. So it's kind of a neat thing, but technology has played some cruel tricks on me. In the height of CanCon, and that's an interesting thing, is the Canadian CRTC.
Yeah.
They're looking at raising Canadian content in music back to 35%. And that caused a boom in the 1980s. I remember because every major radio station in every major city had a contest. And in 1988 in Vancouver, I won them all. I got signed with my doo-wop group, which was just one of 4 different projects that I was involved in at the time. And we signed with Warner Electra Atlanta, a worldwide release of a single. They spent $40,000 shooting a video. 2-inch tape. It had to be a video film, or actual film. It had to be, processed in a dark room. And that was some of the expense that went back. You can look that up, the High Tops, When the Time Comes, on YouTube. And it was interesting, but at the time they were going to release it, the world went from vinyl to cassette. The basic price on a cassette was $6. No one was going to spend $6 on a single.
Hmm.
So they claimed act of God, and we got shelved.
Jeez.
But the same thing happened in the later on when we went from CDs to streaming. I'd spent with my band Tiller's Folly. We'd spent 3 years managed out of Nashville trying to get some footing with the record labels down there. We had all kinds of interest, and all of a sudden the industry changed. No one was taking on new artists, and the whole identity of a record label was, well, what do we do now?
When we look at these moments, right, we look at the vinyls, the printing thousands and getting them on the corners, going to cassettes, going to CDs, going to streaming. Was there a moment where you ever thought, I love the music but hate the business, and maybe this isn't for me?
Yeah, that's no. I always felt compelled to try. Okay, that's one. That's one obstacle. How do we get around this?
Hmm.
I mean, the biggest obstacle I've ever faced was COVID. It took a 45-year career and basically killed it, just stopped it dead completely. And here we are 5 years later, and I'm finally reemerging back to pre-COVID prospects and things that are going on. I got tours on the calendar and a lot of projects over the last 5 years that I've engaged in. I've put a lot of irons and a lot of fires, and now they're coming true.
So I want to ask you this. You brought up something that's neat. When we talk about COVID killing off everything and we talk about getting back into the swing of things and all these iron and fires, you've written hundreds of songs across genres. You've performed countless hours. If someone was discovering you for the first time, anybody out there who's watching this and says, geez, I've never heard of this guy. I'm going to go check him out right now, which I highly encourage. What's the song that you say, you know what? This is the one song you should listen to really get into the Bruce mood?
Boy, oh boy, that's a tough question because, immersing in different stories and different types of music. I found my voice in strange quarters. So it depends. If you like Latin, I've got Latin songs. If you like big, rocky British rock ballads, I've got that too. It's been a bit of a detriment over the years because certain genres of music will not accept a multi-genre person. Oh, you can't be an authentic folk artist if you can sing rock and roll. And they box you into this idea that, oh, you can't do that. Or if they see you playing in a pub and engaging the whole audience, they're going, well, why should we hire him for our festival when people can just walk off the street and hear him for free? Well, no, it's going to cost you $50, $100 in beer just to last the night. I've done it all. With music, it has been a life of adventure, and I have found some interesting corners. But if you were to ask me what my biggest sort of my legacy would be, and that would be stirring up ghosts. Because from my very heart, I've always identified as a Celtic artist, a Celtic balladeer. I know probably hundreds of Scottish and Irish traditional ballads and the stories behind them. I've always found them intriguing. It's like a time machine. Once you get this little 3-minute commercial and it tells you enough and interests you enough to find out more, whether it's Robbie Burns or, really traditional stuff. I've always found it intriguing. And I've always felt as a balladeer obliged to preserve history in song. And that's what Stirring Up Ghost was. It's a journey I started 28 years ago. And that was to preserve a measure of Pacific Canadian history in song. because we didn't really have much at that point. We had a couple of things written by pioneers, but not enough to paint a vivid picture of what our history was like. And that was my journey. Stirring Up Ghost was the name of a first study guide that we used in elementary schools to intrigue young children. And we probably reached in 2 or 3 years every elementary school in British Columbia.
You brought up a lot of great points, and one that I really want to highlight here is that when we talk about your songs, right, they're living stories, much like Stirring Up Ghost Stories were there. And these are novels in, 2, 3, 4 minutes.
Yeah.
How do you know to do that? How do you get that storytelling instinct to come out and get it within that short amount of time? I mean, we're talking 28 years, and we're talking sometimes stories that go back years upon years, and you've managed to successfully put them in this compelling ballad, song, folktale that's so captivating. And then you've gotten it into this time slot of 3 to 4 minutes. Like, how do you get that storytelling instinct to come out?
I don't know what it is about history. It's something that'll intrigue me. Somebody will introduce me to a story. And as I think about it, and they'll say, "Oh, these days they'll email me a digital copy of this old book," and I'll read through it and go, "Wow, well, that's really interesting. That's really intriguing." And then when you start to find out, okay, what was it like? What was it like for that person at that time? What were the challenges? And that perspective is very interesting. And I think a lot of it goes back to when I was a kid. Holidaying with my parents would mean the whole family would get into the car, with a tent trailer behind us, and we'd go up the Caribou Gold Rush Trail to Barkerville. And we'd stop at every heritage site along the way, whether that was a hanging tree in Lillooet, or whether it was a graveyard in Clinton. There were all these different things, and you'd learn little bits of the story. And all of a sudden, you look around, and you're not just living in today, but it's like a time machine. I can look around, even in my hometown of Maple Ridge. I can look around and imagine how it was back in the days. I've seen pictures, I've read diaries.
So, with over 50 plus years and all of the genres, all of the cafes, the cozy cafes, the stages, the coliseums, the schools, the backyard, everything that you've done, what keeps you going? What keeps you inspired to keep creating?
Um, I don't know. It's all I've ever known. And again, I've always believed. My dad took me to see the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem when I was 6 years old. The Queen Elizabeth Theatre in Vancouver. It was quite an awakening. They bounded onto stage with some Irish rebel tune. And in a heartbeat, I knew how I was going to spend my life. I just knew at that moment that was my calling. And what else am I going to do? You move it or lose it in this life.
No.
I've seen too many friends who reach retirement age and they stop doing what they've done all their life. And within 2 or 3 years, they're done. They're gone. They're past. And the people I notice that are living into their 80s and into their 90s are people who are still engaged. They're still doing what they've always done, whether that's acting or music or artwork or writing books. And I think that's, move it or lose it.
Bruce, when you're off stage, when the guitar is not in your hand, when the notebook book is down, and when you have moments just to be Bruce, who is Bruce? What brings you joy when the guitar case is down for the evening, for the day, for the night?
Well, I've always found that there's so much noise, there's so much static in my life. From all the media that's bouncing around today to just people talking. I have an issue called field ground recognition. And it's hard for me to choose to pick out. You and I are talking right now, there's no background. But if we were sitting in a restaurant, people were talking all around, my comprehension goes way down to about 20%. My brain has to read lips and use facial cues to understand what you're saying. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. So when I find quiet, when there's no yakety yak going on, when there's no sirens or that sort of noise, my brain creates symphonies. And it's all I can do just to capture that line, that one inspiration quickly on a phone so that I can come back and visit it next time I've got a little time that I'm sitting in an airport sometime. I can just listen to it really close and, oh, ta-ta, but nothing to do on a plane for 6 hours.
Yeah.
It gives my brain something to put on some noise canceling headphones and dive deep.
Bruce, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And something I want to do with you is a get to know Bruce, if that's okay. There's a handful
Sure.
of couple rapid fire questions, just whatever pops into your head. And it's going to be a lot of fun for people who don't know Bruce. We're going to get to know you right now. Are you excited, sir?
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you. Yep,
Bruce, are you a morning person or more of a night owl?
I'm a morning person. When the sun's up, I'm up.
And what's the first album you remember buying?
The first album I remember buying was Twist and Shout. I got it at a secondhand store and probably cost me about 75 cents.
Now, when you're on the road, what's the go-to comfort food?
The go-to comfort food, red wine.
Hmm. And
Because in this thing, you're at the mercy of what everybody thinks you're going to want. They always have a rider backstage, and you walk in, you go, if I have to eat another egg salad sandwich, I'm going to scream. However, a little glass of wine helps that go down.
who is your guilty band or singer that you don't want to tell anybody, but we're asking you today?
One of my favorite singers. Oh my gosh, I think the one of my favorite singers has to be Steve Winwood. And I actually had a chance to meet him. I got a backstage pass to hang out with Steven and his band back in '89.
And are you a cat person, a dog person, or a fish type of guy?
I am a dog person. When I'm on the road, I'll stop dogs on the street if I think they want to engage. And this happened, we were doing a sound check for a show over in Parksville. And I see this guy walk into the auditorium and he's walking a dog. And I'm just coming off stage and I walk down, I kneel down and I'm petting the dog and I'm shuffling it and talking to it and that sort of thing. And this fellow's going, hem, hem. It's a friend I hadn't seen in a dozen years who came down to meet after sound check. Here I am loving on his dog, and I had no idea it was him.
And to you, what's your favorite smell in the whole world?
Oh my gosh, my favorite smell in the world. There are so many. I think a fresh, clear stream in a morning. When you just catch that freshness off, yeah, that to me, combined with the sound of a stream, and there's something about that environment that seems invigorating, especially if that stream's in Scotland.
And what's your favorite place to perform? A pub, a coffee house, a quiet cafe, a large stage, a festival, screaming fans? What's the ideal?
It's each holds their own charm, and I do like. I believe in an intimacy between artist and listener that they feel so engaged that they're a part of it, and that each audience is an individual community. It may never repeat itself again. And I sometimes remind folks, look around you. These people are part of our own community tonight. Some of them some of them you might want to know. Just say hi in the break.
And if you had to trade your guitar for, let's say, a fiddle, a bodhran, or a tin whistle, what would you trade it for?
Well, I already play the tin whistle. So I've got that. I've got a stack of barons up in the corner there. I can play that as well. Mandolin, bouzouki, tenor, banjo. I
Slide
don't get
whistle?
as much chance as a songwriter because primarily a songwriter is there to accompany his voice. And but I do play many different styles of guitar depending on who I'm playing with. You know, you're playing with bass and drums, the guitar style gets very simplistic, especially if you got someone playing lead, whether that's a fiddle or a mandolin, you have to leave room for them.
I love that
And
you
it's
have
just,
all you got them all behind you anyway, so what are we trading?
and well, a lot of times when I'm playing, when I'm performing, I'm doing the bass runs, I'm doing fills, I'm taking solos up while I'm doing the whole 9 yards. So it's a whole different aspect, but every bit of it is rich. The whole cross section. Some days I'm fronting a 6-piece R&B band, and other days I'm in this quiet little coffee house out of the way town, and people are just completely engaged, and that's magic.
Bruce, as a songwriter, you've written about love, loss, history, and more. What's one subject that you haven't written about but you want to?
Hmm. I I don't think there's anything I haven't written about that I've wanted to. If I feel so compelled, I always find a song. So uh, yeah, it's just there's never been a problem other than the time. It takes a lot of time to engage in a musical career, a full-time musical career, and you have to learn a lot of different things. So I've got to be a web builder. I've got to do social media. I've got to be a publicist.
Hmm.
You know, all these things at once, and a band member, and you know, there's a lot of hats to wear. So I in some ways I feel that after 50 years, I'm finally coming of age. I'm playing better guitar than I ever have. My voice has not suffered at all for the 50 years. If anything, I'm singing cleaner and with more oomph than ever.
And Bruce, out of all of the 50 plus years that you've been doing this, all of the conversation, coffee chats, interviews, promotions, all these things, what's something that you wished somebody would have asked you and they never have?
Mhm. Well, that's a tough question, but I think we've covered almost everything that I'd want to discuss. You know, music has always been an adventure to me, and I think that's the one thing. I do feel that if I had just chosen one path, just one path, whether that was folk or Celtic, that I could have enjoyed more celebrity, more return, that sort of thing. But I've always been compelled by my passion for music. And sometimes you hear a blues band, it's like, I'm there.
Hmm.
I'm just there. There's so much nuance um, that it never gets old. You know, even indigenous music, you listen to it and you go, oh, wow, there's some interesting things about that. And I've always been able to, luckily, find my own voice within any style I've felt engaged in.
And Bruce, where can our viewers and listeners learn more about you? What's your website? How can we find you?
Okay, songsmith.ca. And if you go to songsmith.ca, and you go to, let me just pull it up here for myself. Under welcome, you'll find a checkered past. And I take you through 50 years, or at least most of it, in my journey in little 10-year increments. So you can see what I looked like at 12 years old playing rock and roll in a garage band.
And Bruce,
And as a doo-wop artist with my long ponytail. Um, Another aspect of, and I guess what you call a legacy project, is stirring up ghosts songsmith.ca. Songs and Stories of Pacific Canada. And I've got a couple dozen songs and stories and the media I've gathered over the years. And I'm still reaching out at this point on a few of the stories to heritage sites and museums, historic book writers. And they're coming on board and lending their insight. Oh, did you know this part of the story? And we'll share a link so you can go to see this, find out more about the ghost of Slumac. You know, there's references within these songs that are far-reaching and educational. And you'll also find an introduction to a new media format, a songumentary. Songumentary is what I've created to place a historic song into perspective. And I use a combination of virtual walkthroughs of places today so you can put it in perspective. Well, here's what it looked like today, but then I'll do an archival image montage, and you'll see what it looked like back then. And of course, I'm tying it together and telling you the story. Now, and the reason for this is because most people under 50 these days has their face buried in their phone. Yeah. And how are you going to share stories and history of our unique Pacific Canadian culture? You have to break it down into media pieces, 30 seconds long, or that you can stick on Instagram or, you know, Twitter or whatever your thing is. But that's what I've come to do as part of my legacy, is to be sort of a singing Bill Barley. Let's talk about history. Let's talk about the culture here, at least from my history. My people, so to speak, were of Celtic descent. So the Irish and the Scottish who came over with the Hudson's Bay Company, to the people like Mackenzie, the first person to cross the entire continent, did so, was a Scotsman in Canada.
Wow. And Bruce, I have time for one last question for you today on Coffee with Chris, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. I'm super excited. I hope everyone gets out there to songsmith.ca to follow you, because I very much enjoy your work. My last question for you today on Coffee with Chris is, what makes Bruce smile?
More than anything else, walking off stage knowing I have engaged an audience, that I've reached them on a personal level. And again, that we feel some state of community. Music from the beginning of time has been about gathering people. It was how they brought people together for market day. There'd always be a singer, you know, someone there to tell stories and engage people. And I've always felt a part of that. That's the most rewarding thing that I can imagine.
I love that. And as I said, it was the last question I had for you today on Coffee with Chris. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our show. Everyone out there, get to Google, get to songsmith.ca. You got to look him up. You got to hear his songs. You got to see these stories. You're absolutely going to fall in love with them. Remember, everyone out there, to smile to inspire, and have yourselves a fantastic day. Our guest today, Bruce Coughlan, songsmith.ca. Thank you again so much for your time, Bruce.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's great having a coffee with you.